history has a red and gold reflection. The Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 57.
Open your eyes. This isn't a dream. Today, no result of grand manifestation. It's more simple math. The total sum of 53 greater than your opponent time and again. But the reality of today is that there can only be one. On one side, a hero won long enough to become villain. The other, finally on the same page and in search of redemption. This isn't just a game. It's an intersection of life where down one road, they say it as part of your name. Super Bowl champion. A final examination of will and ability in a moment as big as they make them.
These are the moments that we play for. Hey, we're not done. We're not done.
So come in denial of their recreational fatigue.
People hate the Chiefs. I didn't know that.
Because true greatness comes in threes.
I want three.
We got to get three.
No one's ever got three.
Or answer the opportunity and prove what you're willing to do to see a reflection in that 7 pounds of silver. It's only about today. Forever.
We have Kyle Long and Mike Renner from Pushing the Pile joining us now, and you saw the images of Kobe Bryant there holding up the three. That's what the Chiefs are going for right now. No NFL team has done it in the Super Bowl era. Last major pro sports team was those early 2000s Lakers, and many of us, because of that, have doubted that the Chiefs, Kyle, would be in this position to do it. But you have not wavered in what you've said all season long, that this Chiefs team is going to get it done. Why?
Well, first and foremost, I want to point out how difficult it is in our game of football with 53 guys on the active roster, 11 guys on both sides of the ball, to be able to win, let alone repeat, and even further, let alone the three-peat. When you look at these other leagues, basketball, you got 5 guys. You can probably figure out a way to contractually get that to happen. But with the Chiefs, it's been unbelievable what they've been able to string together. And the one common thread there is Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. And it kind of feels like looking at a picture of Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and Michael Jordan. It's just unbelievable the things that these guys have been able to achieve. I'm unwavering because of the quarterback and that head coach really at the end of the day. And they've been there. They've done that. There's no moment too big for these guys, Mike.
Yeah, it's the end of the game stuff that makes this team so special. It's the fact that if they have the ball with the chance to win, they will win every single time. Pretty much for the last 3 seasons now, that's been the case. It's just a rare air in terms of the confidence they walk into every single game with, and almost undo at this point because, I mean, they are overmatched from a talent perspective against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think everyone in America would rather have the Eagles roster on a talent-by-talent basis, but it just doesn't matter when you face the Kansas City Chiefs with what they have with the coaches and what they have with Patrick Mahomes leading this team.
17 straight wins in 1-score games for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not the only streak they have going, of course, going for their 10th straight playoff win. Mahomes, Mike, just 1 interception during that streak. We're going to get out ahead of what will be the most talked about story, I think, later on tonight and tomorrow if the Chiefs win. And it's comparing Patrick Mahomes to the guy in the booth that's going to be calling this game, Tom Brady. He's not going to have the same number of rings, but he's going to have that three-peat that Brady does not have. If he wins tonight, Mike, what more would Mahomes need to do to earn GOAT status?
I still think he's a little bit away, right? And the thing is, he's 29 doing this. Tom Brady was obviously in his mid-40s when he got his 7th Super Bowl, but it is still comparing 4 Super Bowls with 7. Obviously, he's got probably a decade plus to go capture that 7, but it's a great start. I don't think we have to get ahead of ourselves, though, in declaring him the greatest of all time. When a guy, Tom Brady, did it at 2 different stops, did it all the way into his mid-40s. I think he still has a little bit of ways to go, but he does have something that no one else is going to say in NFL history that they have. That obviously is a nice feather in his cap, even if he doesn't end up at 7 when it's all said and done.
Kyle?
Yeah, I just think it's not one of these things that you want to get in the way of. We're witnessing greatness right now. We're witnessing something that's never been done, an opportunity to get a three-peat. Why spoil the moment with a GOAT conversation where people's feelings are going to get hurt? And it's never in these talks, you're never slighting the guy that within your stance you're saying is not the GOAT, because at the end of the day, there's only one greatest of all time. And obviously Tom Brady stands alone that mountain right now with 7. And that number's astronomical. But Patrick's clip, the pace at which he has played with to get to the 4 Super Bowl mark with an opportunity knocking at a door for a three-peat, it's in the conversation now. You know, he is definitely in the conversation now. And to Mike's point, I think there is some room to cover, some ground to cover for Patrick Mahomes if he wants to sure-footedly take stand on top of the GOAT mountain, as it were.
And a couple of times Brady beating Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl when Brady was in Tampa. But if Mahomes wins, he would have his 4th ring. That would be as many rings as all quarterbacks active in the NFL combined right now, and a couple of those guys might be done. Andy Reid with an extra week to prepare. Kyle, you know this. When he gets that extra week, he wins. 40 times he's had an extra week in his coaching career. He's 33-7 in those games. You played for him just a few years ago. What makes him so great in these situations?
I just think the way that he looks at the game is really unique. A lot of people are looking at the game and the game plan, as it were, to scheme up in a reactionary sense for what they're going to see from the other team. Andy Reid's a guy who wants to set the precedent of what the game's going to be like. He wants to be the guy that's playing offense more so than making adjustments. And I think you give a guy like this or Bill Belichick extra time, and you're always going to be in the right when you're saying that he probably has the advantage on the other staff. Granted, Vic Fangio, fantastic coach on the other side defensively. Andy Reid is the guy that is going to be taking up the dribble each and every possession. It's just by nature of how he thinks about the game. He's creative. He's cutting edge. He allows his guys to go do what they do best.
Yeah, and I think Reid uniquely adjusts better than a lot of these high-level minds who have like their scheme that they bring to the table. That's this new cutting-edge thing. Well, Reid does well to incorporate those new models into his offense while also staying true to what they do offensively and where their strengths are and playing to the guys on the football field. They know that they have weaknesses, whether it's at the tackle position this year and then they switch Joe Thuney out there, or at wide receiver 2 this year. Like, they know they've had some weaknesses. They've been able to scheme around him. I think that's where Reid's genius is compared to these other new age offensive minds, is that he can adjust to whatever he's given every week. And that's why, well, they are so consistent over the course of his Chiefs tenure there. 8 straight now conference championship games, looking for the 3rd straight Super Bowl. Andy Reid, very much up there in the conversation, if not the best offensive mind in NFL history.
And throughout this dynasty that began, 5-6 years ago now in 2019 with their first title, they have not allowed a single 100-yard rusher in the playoffs. I mean, 18 straight games, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher. Steve Spagnuolo, a huge reason why, obviously, but this appears to be his toughest test, Kyle. How do you expect the Chiefs to try to contain Saquon and all those great weapons the Eagles have on offense?
Well, I think he understands if you cut the head off, the body will fall. And oftentimes in these offenses we see with great offensive lines, it's that running back. Now, you've got a spectacular running back in Saquon Barkley. I fully anticipate Steve Spagnuolo trying to take away what the Philadelphia Eagles do best. And by adding more numbers in the box and forcing Jalen Hurts to be on time and in rhythm, if they do want to opt to go with the passing game, I think that's what they're going to do. He has confidence with his guys on the edges, in the slot, and on the back end. Really cerebral group, a group that is like that offense. There's never a moment that's too big for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and Spags, like Coach Reid, is able to adjust and also have that game plan that plays to their favor. Take Saquon away, force the Philadelphia Eagles, the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles, to beat you that way.
It's easier said than done, though, taking Saquon away. I'll just say that because what they've done offensively, it's not just Saquon. It's not just tackle this guy out in space. It's try to deal with the best offensive line in the NFL, maybe the best offensive line in like the past decade that we've seen in the NFL. And it's not just good. It is huge. These guys are all 350 plus across from left tackle to right tackle, except for center Cam Jurgens, but they move you off the line of scrimmage. So there's not much you can do when you're getting punched in the mouth, right? Like, there's no real recourse. You can put more numbers in there. That just opens up when they do get a crease for those hit home runs to go even farther than they would if you left those guys deep. So there's not really any way to stop them. As we've seen, 12 of the last 14 games, Saquon's gone for over 100 yards. Maybe just try to contain them and try to take away the passing game with Jalen Hurts. We'll see what they end up choosing tonight.
And Mike, Saquon is the one key difference in these two teams from 2 years ago. How can Saquon be the difference in the outcome as well?
Yeah, the reason they've been able to ride him so much is not only because he, gets what's blocked, it is because he has good enough vision and can kind of churn between the tackles, but also because he adds an explosive element that they did not have with the other backs on this roster. Like I said, if you give him a crease, if you put too many guys in the box and all of a sudden they get blocked up or one guy misses his gap, that's when he goes for 70. That's when he goes for 80, and no one's catching this guy from behind. So that's the problem, is their run game now has the same explosive elements of most passing games. So they really don't even need to sprinkle in much of the passing game if they don't want to. They can really just ride him 25 plus carries and get all the benefits of a passing game still. So it's really scary if you're an opposing defense, how you want to go about it. You really need to rely on your guys up front to win their matchups, and very few have been able to do that against this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley's a superhuman. He truly is. He's a superhero. They make movies about guys like Saquon Barkley. The same can be said for that offensive line, though. And we talk about great offensive lines around the league and how they're able to keep their offenses on schedule. 2nd and 5, 3rd and 1, advantageous situations, downs and distances. Well, Saquon's a guy who's going to keep you on schedule. And like Mike said, every once in a while, more often than not, the ball's going to leave the yard. He's going to be doing his home run trot around touch them all the bases, boys. That's the benefit of having a great offensive line. Then you sprinkle in a guy like Saquon Barkley to that roster, and magic really does happen. So look for that to be a key point in the game. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, a superstar, a reason for the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Jalen Hurts has really benefited from that offensive line as well, and he is going to play in his 4th title game when you combine the NFL, 2nd Super Bowl, and a couple of national championship games in college. But he has 2 losses and 1 benching in his 3 previous championship game experiences. And Kyle, he's been doubted a lot. How big is the chip on his shoulder going into this game?
A huge chip on his shoulder, and I think the added benefit of Jalen Hurts is that all his compatriots over there in Philadelphia have the same chip on their shoulder. The guys on the defensive line that were around, the guys on the O-line that were around against the Chiefs the last time. No excuses now. They're going to be playing on turf. That was the big gripe last time. Nobody had their footing. Well, Jalen Hurts has that best offensive line in the league. He's got 2 studs out there at the receiver position. He's got Dallas Goedert, who's an undercover superhero as well, and then Saquon Barkley. So he's bringing the whole gang with him. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I would imagine that chip doesn't weigh him down too much because of the talent around him. Also, Jalen Hurts, he's a superstar. I don't think people appreciate that enough or put their finger on that in the media enough. The guy is a superstar. I hate to break it to you if you don't think so.
Yeah, I do think his impact on this team has been underrated. It's not just passing yards. He had 300 yards last time around when they played in the Super Bowl, has only had 300 yards in a game once this season. But his impact on the running game is huge. We saw it a couple weeks ago. When he tucks it, like his ability to run himself, his ability to execute the tush pushes, those are all high value, high leverage plays that he brings to the table because he is such a dynamic rushing threat, because he is such a powerful runner at that position. And then he doesn't turn the ball over. Now, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, he had the bad fumble that ended up in a touchdown. That was one of the deciding factors in that game. But he doesn't throw the ball into harm's way. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, only 5 this entire season during the regular season. So I do think he plays a very complementary style to what they want to do. And maybe it doesn't get impacted in the passing yards, passing totals, but he is a reason why Saquon's been so efficient when he gets the football.
Hurts, Saquon, A.J. Brown, Goddard, and maybe the best offensive line we've seen in several years in the NFL. Yet it's the Eagles' defense that statistically is even better on paper. #1 scoring D, #1 total D. Vic Fangio, very familiar with Patrick Mahomes, 3 seasons in his division as head coach of the Broncos. Mike, how do the Eagles attack this Chiefs offense?
It's insane to say that they are a defensive team given what they have offensively, but it's true. And it's what they've got since the last Super Bowl that's made them this. They have added Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Zach Bond, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, all in the last 2 drafts in free agency this past offseason. Like maybe their 5 best players on the defensive side of the ball all weren't there this last time around. All they really have to do is just have that front 4 win. That's what it takes to shut down Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, no one's shutting down Patrick Mahomes, but for them to have the kind of game that they've had to basically everyone this season. Since week 5, since that bye week, no one's gotten the better of this team. They've been the best rushing defense and the best pass defense over that span, and it is because that front 4 can be so dominant. Guys like Jalen Carter, guys like Milton Williams. So the problem is you can't double any of them because all of them can win their one-on-one. So that's the matchup that's going to decide this one. If they can consistently get pressure on Mahomes, it's just going to be very, very difficult for him to survive.
100%, Mike. I mean, that's Vic Fangio's style. Let's play coverage behind a great rush. We're not going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to have to run a 20-play drive to get into our red zone, and then you're going to have to man up and drive that thing into the end zone. And you don't have Jalen Hurts on your team, so good luck trying to tush push. They got to bend but not break. That's the MO of Vic Fangio's defense. And to your point about those 2 interior guys with Milton Williams and Jalen Carter, they're going to have a tough test because I like Trey Smith against anybody in the National Football League one-on-one, but it's a tough out against Jalen Carter, which means Creed Humphrey's going to have the opportunity to go when he wants to help out Mike Caliendo at the left guard position. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, but that will be the key indicator on who will win or lose the Super Bowl.
It is time for our big-time delivery presented by Little Caesars. All this talk about this Eagles defense, which is #1 in the league. And, Mike, you're looking at a player to deliver today that is in the middle of that D.
Yeah, it's Zach Bond, the Eagles linebacker. I fully anticipate the Chiefs to try to set the tone with the run game early on. And if they can't, maybe move away from it. Zach Bond's the guy who shuts that down. He flies downhill as well as any linebacker in the NFL. Led all linebackers in the National Football League in defensive stops this season. That's tackles made at or around the line of scrimmage. He's a guy who plays with his hair on fire, and he's going to be necessary to shut down Travis Kelce as well and all the stuff, the passing game that they love to attack over the middle of the football field. So he's my big-time delivery player for this one.
You know what? That's a big-time football answer right there from you, Mike Renner. Everybody and their mama's talking about skill players. I've heard Xavier Worthy. I've heard A.J. Brown. I've heard Patrick and Jalen. Well, you know what? I'm also going to be looking at that line of scrimmage and somebody who's going to be have to dealing with some run-throughs from Zach Bond. I'm going to go with Trey Smith, the right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only does he have an incredibly difficult matchup, but his center is going to be asked a lot of on that left side of the line of scrimmage. I fully anticipate Vic Fangio walking up Zach Bond in passing situations. He's no stranger to being at the line of scrimmage and getting in those pass rush scenarios. And what is that going to do for the offensive line? They're going to put their fingers up like this. That means 5-0. That means every man for themselves. Trey Smith is going to eat by his guy Patrick Mahomes sometime.
Can you straighten that pinky, Kyle, or is that permanently deformed?
It's a trick pinky. It is a trick pinky. That's just the way it is.
Oh, my God. All right. Thanks, guys. We're going to be talking with them a little bit more in just a minute, get picks and props. We're also going to be hearing a lot more from them tonight. After the game, a live Pushing the Pile with Kyle and Mike. And it is game day with Little Caesars, the official sponsor of the NFL. Scan that QR code now and have your pizza delivered. Of course, you've got plenty of time to get it there before kickoff. Picks and props coming up next, including a Travis Kelce prop that pays nearly 3 to 1. That's on the other side with Kyle, Mike, and Todd Fuhrman. HQ presented by Little Caesars on Super Bowl Sunday. Going to give you some of our best bets. Kyle Long. Nobody's been better at HQ than Kyle Long in best bets this season. 15-6, picking our NFL games against the spread weekly. Yours truly 13-8. I couldn't quite catch Kyle. And that the way that they cropped this picture, it kind of makes me look bald. Todd's hair is in the picture. You must have a smaller face, Todd. 9-11-1. And the producer picked, though they're still 5 games below 500, been doing better recently. So Kyle, Mike Renner with us, and Todd Fuhrman from Vegas as well. I usually would cede the floor to Todd, but Kyle, since you've been so good all season long, we're going to start with you as we go through our best bets for the Super Bowl. We're going to start with just a game play here with the Eagles, with the Chiefs. It's kind of stayed this way all week, favored by 1.5, though The underdog has covered each of the last 4 Super Bowls, Kyle.
You know what? I haven't been that good. Pete Prisco's just been that bad. I've gone against what Pete Prisco picks every week, and then I end up in a good spot. In this instance, I am going to be going with the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think that a team that's destined for greatness, there's nobody that can get in the way of them. They're already great. They're going for uncharted territory. Patrick and Andy are as calm, cool, and collected in these big moments as anybody. I fully anticipate the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be punching up in this one, at a disadvantage roster-wise. They're going to be punching up, and they're going to really enjoy being the underdogs against the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me the Chiefs.
Kyle, I'm going to go the other way, which probably bodes well for you to get to 16-6 on the season from where you are right now, and take Philadelphia plus the 1.5 in this game. When you dig into this matchup, I made Philadelphia a short favorite here, and while I don't show a tremendous edge in a one-game sample size like this, I think Philadelphia's strengths right now can play into Kansas City's defensive weaknesses. And when you look at this Chiefs run defense, it's really struggled through the first 2 games in the postseason. It was a group through the first 8 or 9 games this year that was performing at an elite level, but it started to tail off a little bit down the stretch. And I think what that means for Philadelphia, they can establish the ground game. It'll make a Chiefs defense that's been relatively sensitive to play action vulnerable in that regard as well. And I think for Philadelphia this time around, you don't have some of those same jitters they did a couple of years ago. They know how close they were to keeping the Chiefs off the scoreboard for their first win in that potential three-peat that we're staring at today. And I think Philadelphia goes out there, starts quickly, and finishes the job that slipped through their fingers in Phoenix a couple of years ago. I'll take the Eagles plus a 1.5.
I'm going Eagles as well, and it's to echo a lot of things Todd said. I think the biggest matchups in this game, the biggest mismatches, favor the Eagles, whether it's Milton Williams against Mike Caliendo, the defensive lineman, or the Philadelphia Eagles against the backup guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, or that big, massive Philadelphia Eagles offensive line going up against a relatively underpowered defensive line in terms of pure size to go mano-a-mano against that big unit up front. So all those things, I think the Eagles are just the better team all around. I think they have a style of football that is built to win games in a situation like this. And because of all that, I'm going to ride with Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay, so 2 of the 3 on the Philadelphia Eagles. And when we talk Super Bowl MVP, obviously we know it usually goes to the winning team quarterback. But Todd, I'm going to go with you. You picked the Eagles. Saquon is the favorite to win MVP if the Eagles win this game. But 1998 was the last time we saw a running back win it. Terrell Davis with the Broncos.
You know, Chris, I'd love to come on here and say that I could make a case for a defensive player or that Jake Elliott at 1,000-1 offered some sort of upside, but I'm going to take the favorite for the team that I think wins the game and go with Saquon Barkley. When you look at the numbers he's put forth this season, he has truly been a bell cow back, and I expect in a game like this, Philadelphia to scheme ways up to get the ball in his hands, not just as a runner, but as a receiver as well. Mike talked a little bit earlier in the show about the explosive big play potential that the Eagles have in the ground game. I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be something they can lean their hat on here against this Chiefs defense that tackles extremely well and has been great suppressing explosive runs. But I think that gives Saquon the opportunity to carry it 22 to 25 times, be able to score multiple times as well. And for Philadelphia to have success, I think it's taking the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands, running the football. I don't think they're going to need to lean on Hurts the same way they did a couple of years ago where he threw for 300, but it resulted in a loss. I know it's chalky, gentlemen, but I'll take Saquon Barkley to take home the hardware here.
Yeah, I know we haven't seen one since the late 90s, but we also haven't seen a running game like the Philadelphia Eagles since the late 90s. So I do think if the Eagles win, I think it's going to be because Saquon goes for 125, 150. And if that's the case, it's hard to give anyone else the MVP.
The quarterback on the first place team is Patrick LaVon Mahomes II, and he will have just won his 3rd. Give me Patrick Mahomes, MVP, baby.
Okay, so Kyle is on the island with the Chiefs here. To best bets we go. The absolute #1 best bet for each of our guys for tonight's Super Bowl. Mike, I'm going to let you start here because I like the value that you can get with your prop.
I'm going to go Travis Kelce over 80 yards. It's at plus 240 right now, so you're getting good value on it. He's done it in each of the last 3 Super Bowls, and obviously he's on a downturn. He's not quite the same guy, but he's done it in 2 of his last 3 games, and done it when Hollywood Browns come back over that span. And why I mentioned that is because with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy in the lineup, it's made defenses have to play a different brand of football. With that much speed, you've seen safeties play a lot softer, and when safeties play a lot softer, that means a lot more space over the middle of the football field. And the one backup who is in the lineup for the Philadelphia Eagles, Oren Burks at linebacker, that's one of the guys who's going to be tasked to guard Travis Kelce. I like him going over that number and getting good value for it.
You know, Mike, much like you, making a case for Saquon Barkley as MVP, the Eagles to win the game, I'm also going to focus on a member of the Chiefs receiving corps for my best bet. But I'll go to the wide receiver position and take a look at Hollywood Brown to go over his reception number at 3.5. You look at the way Hollywood started the game in the AFC Championship against Buffalo, caught 2 passes on the opening drive, only added another tally before he finished that game with 3. Has just 7 targets so far this postseason, but in the last couple of games of the regular season, I mean, Hollywood saw a major workload from this Kansas City Chiefs receiving room. And I think if you're Philadelphia, you're trying to scheme ways to protect against Xavier Worthy hitting the explosive. So I think Hollywood becomes the X factor on the other side. Now, I'm very curious to see what Philadelphia does defensively, who Quinyon Mitchell spends the majority of the game matched up with. But I think Darius Slay, a little bit more vulnerable than some of those underlying numbers suggest. I think Hollywood's got an excellent chance to flirt with 5 catches here. I'll take him over 3.5 and lay $1.20 to do so.
Todd, I'd love to see Hollywood Brown get a dozen catches in this football game, but the guy that I think I can lean on for the prop is Patrick Mahomes. Over 28.5 yards rushing. Obviously, Joe Thuney at left tackle, which means there is a mismatch inside, but nobody does better at navigating a dirty pocket than Patrick Mahomes. I know the nature of Vic Fangio's covers. There's going to be some guys back deep. Patrick Mahomes will have opportunity to run, break the back of the defense. Over 28.5 rushing yards for Patrick Mahomes.
All right, now I got mine. Actually, I took this from Todd Fuhrman, who's going to give us some of his top props a little bit later. But I love Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. You got to lay $1.25, but he's had a rushing touchdown in 10 of the last 13 games. He had 3 of them alone in the Super Bowl when they matched up against the Chiefs 2 years ago. And our producer pick, Eagles money line, that is almost even money at -102 as you look at our best bets for tonight's Super Bowl. Many more props to follow from Todd Fuhrman, including a Saquon prop. It seems too easy. His longest rush, 23.5. He goes for 60+ every game.